Dark Territory by A.C. Cobble. Narrated by Eric Michael Summerer. Animal Instinct. It was quiet. Ben exhaled slowly, silently. His breath clouded in front of him, then drifted away, vanishing into the cold air. His face stung, chapped from the wind and the cold. The muscles in his thighs were cramped from his half-squat. He'd been crouching too long. The ache in his legs melded seamlessly with the pain in the rest of his body. From his head to his knees, he felt like he'd been laid out on a blacksmith's anvil and relentlessly pounded by the hammer. Below his knees, he couldn't feel anything. His feet were sunk in calf-deep snow, and moisture thoroughly soaked his leather boots. He knew he was risking frostbite. It was common enough back in Farview when loggers ventured too deep in the winter months or came back too late. The occasional missing finger, ear, or toe was part of the work. Moving around and ensuring proper blood flow would help, but he couldn't move his feet. Not yet. The crunch from stepping on the dry snow would be like a firework in the silent forest. Crunching snow was what let him know his prey was near. He glanced down at his makeshift spear. It would be sufficient, he hoped. The spear was made of a long, straight branch. It was as tall as he was. He'd cut the point with his mage-wrought longsword. Probably not the purpose the makers had in mind for such an elegant weapon, but it was necessary. He'd been unable to sharpen the thing with his belt knife. Considering how difficult it had been to make, he hoped the pointed tip of the winter-cold branch would punch like steel. His breath caught. He finally saw what he was waiting for. 15 paces in front of him, a deer stepped from behind a snow-covered pine tree. Too young if he'd been stalking it through the woods around Farview. He and his friend Sarot would never consider harming such a young animal. Here and now, though, any meat was fair game. Ben and Amelie had been on the run for 5 days. They were getting desperate. They were terrified to stop anywhere people would see them, but the winter forest was reluctant to support them. They hadn't eaten for 3 of those 5 days. This was Ben's last gamble before they would have to risk going into a town. Eldred might be waiting for them, but they had to eat. He could already feel the weakness seeping through his limbs. Another day or two and they would both be worthless, too weak to travel or fight. Be still, he told himself. Focus on the now. He breathed in deeply, practicing the meditation Toal taught him months before. Slowly, he raised the spear. The deer, ignorant to the threat, shuffled forward, nose close to the frozen ground. It was also looking for food. Shaking, Ben's arm cocked the spear back to throw. 15 paces was not far. He could make this. He'd practiced by their campfire. He knew he could make it. A bird called, and the deer's head snapped up. Ben froze. A bare branch rustled in the wind. The deer bolted. Ben cursed and launched the spear with all of his might, hoping he could catch it in the neck for a quick kill, or at least wound it. A bleeding wound would be easy to track in the snow. Instead, his spear sailed a pace behind the deer, and the animal flashed away, vanishing into the woods like his breath in the air. Muttering to himself, Ben stomped on numb feet to retrieve the spear. The freshly sharpened wood was lying harmless on top of the snow. When Ben returned, Amelie was sitting morosely, staring at their smoky campfire. Too smoky if they wanted to avoid detection, but without the heat, they may not survive the bitter cold nights. Amelie didn't comment on the lack of game. They both knew what they had to do now. "You want to warm up first?" she asked. Ben nodded and staggered over to hold his hands in front of the welcome heat of the fire. He sat down and stripped off his boots, sticking the wet leather as close as he dared to the hot coals. Drying them off quickly was more important than avoiding a scorch mark. "As soon as my boots are dry, let's get moving again," he said while rubbing his ice-cold feet to get the blood circulating.